Hi, and welcome to In Search of Insight, Nootropics Depot's monthly podcast. I'm your podcast host, Erika, and sitting next to me, as always, is our product specialist at Nootropics Depot, Emiel.
Hey everyone.
Today, Emiel and I are going to be talking about focus. And we're going to talk about the supplements that we take to help us maximize our focus on a daily basis, but we're also going to be talking about what focus feels like and why we need to be able to focus for a certain amount of time each day, and the challenges that we have when we're not able to focus well enough. We're also going to be talking about the sort of behavioral stacks that we put together. So like a combination of a routine or maybe exercise or a mindset shift that we use to actually help us access that focus when it comes to just daily life, like work and cooking and cleaning and staying on track, but also for more specific situations like when we're working on a project or doing something creatively, and we need some sustained focus for many, many hours and in kind of a special circumstance. So today is going to be a really interesting podcast, and I'm really looking forward to talking about focus because this is something that I do think about quite often. How about you?
I don't think about it that often, but it's something that I catch myself in a moment, like, wow, I was really focused there, or, so I guess I am thinking about it. But it's not something that at this point in time I'm really focusing on enhancing focus. That is not a big part of my focus because throughout the years, with all of the supplements that we take, with the ways I have dialed in my process, focus is always kind of there, sometimes even too much. Sometimes I need to figure out a way to pull myself out of that really tunnel vision. The world around me stops existing and I'm just going and going and going to the point where it can almost become detrimental too. Now, when I think about it back to like college, for example, when I was first really starting to get used to heavier workloads, complex mental tasks, I had a lot of struggles with focus. So I will be talking about that period of my life too, and then all of the steps that I took to get to where I am now, where focus comes quite naturally to me, even though if I look at my genetic reports and I look around maybe at some of the symptoms out there, I kind of very much fit into that ADHD framework, and my genetic reports showed that I'm in the highest risk factors for ADHD type of things, which makes a lot of sense because I have fast monoamine oxidase A, I have fast monoamine oxidase B, and I have fast catechol O-methyltransferase, COMT enzyme activity, and what those enzymes do is that they break down neurotransmitters. So for me, there's somewhat of a struggle to keep up on those neurotransmitter levels, to keep focus locked in, but there's also a lot of behavioral things that I do that really helps with that. And one of those is exercise. And exercise is just important for all different aspects of health, but it's really important for cognitive function, brain health, mood, all of those things. And we'll get into a little bit why that is the case later. And then also talking about other behavioral things like cold water exposure. So actually this morning, in preparation for this podcast, we went to a sauna, and in between the sauna, we jumped into some pretty cold water. Today it was around 8 degrees Celsius, swam a lap, and then got back into the sauna. And cold water exposure helps increase norepinephrine levels, and norepinephrine is very important for focus. So with us having done just a behavioral thing, we didn't take anything, we just did an actual activity, and we exposed ourselves to cold water. That actually helps me enhance my focus to a point that these podcasts are going much better than they have in the past. So for the last 2 or 3 episodes, I think, we did the same thing. Woke up pretty early in the morning, went to the sauna, got back, did some research, and then went into the podcast. So here we are. Now, on top of that, we are going to take a few things, and this is going to be a little bit more complex than usual. Usually, we take just one product and talk about what that product does. But focus is so multifaceted that you can't really get away with one product. If there was one product that I would go for, it would be Suboxone. Suboxone doesn't work necessarily for everyone, but for the majority of us, it works. It works really well. It's a great way of enhancing focus at the risk of kind of producing that tunnel vision focus response, which can be good and can be negative, because sometimes you need to switch between tasks too. And I think Erika can speak a little bit more to that with some of the lessons that you're doing. You can't necessarily be tunnel focused on something. You've got a lot of kids that require individual focus in your lessons. So you need to have some sort of cognitive flexibility.
Absolutely.
So when I was thinking of making this stack, I thought, okay, we are going to enhance like real raw focus, and we are going to use Subroxy. So here is our Subroxy that we're going to be taking.
I'm really curious because I haven't taken Subroxy in a very long time. So I don't really have a recent frame of reference for how it's supposed to feel. So I'm really, really interested in the sort of changes that I will notice as the podcast continues.
It will be an interesting one. I hadn't taken it for about a month or two, and I recently took it again, and I was really surprised by how well it worked. Recently, there were a few people on Reddit too that tried it for the very first time, and they were very surprised by how effective it is. So it is a very cool one. I think just as a standalone, especially if you're more in the mode of I need to sit down and study for 8 hours in a row and I can't get distracted by anything, and then that tunnel vision effect is actually quite important to maintain. Something like this can help you with that. But I want to look at a more holistic approach of focus, because that kind of focus, for a lot of us, it plays a role for a few years in our lives. At a certain point, you get out of that mode of having to cram and study all day long, and it becomes more of a mode where you have to take all of those things that you learned, you have to apply them in real-world scenarios. And in my opinion, in those real-world scenarios, you oftentimes find yourselves in a mode where you have to be able to task switch quickly, flexibly, but then be able to get back into whatever you are doing as quickly as humanly possible. And for anyone who works in an office environment, especially a more social office environment, I think you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You might be writing an email, you're really focused on trying to get your thoughts across, and then your colleague taps you on your shoulder and goes, "Hey Emil, do you know where such and such thing is?" And then you go and you're in a conversation for 5 minutes, and then you have to get back to writing that email. A lot of the times, if your focus isn't there, getting back to that email might be really hard. You might think, hey, I'm distracted now anyways, I'm gonna go to the water cooler and have a little drink there. Oh, and there's some colleagues standing around. I'm gonna have a conversation. And next thing you know, it's an hour later, you've had all sorts of interesting, productive conversations, but that email is still there. So how do you task switch and then get straight back into focus? And that is what I designed this stack that we're going to take today around. So we hit on multiple different aspects of focus, but also on cognitive flexibility, so we can task switch, which is of course also important in a podcast, because we're going to be jumping through a lot of different topics. But in the sake of keeping this maybe a little bit of a shorter podcast, let's actually get into taking these, and then we're going to talk about them. So Subroxy.
Great idea.
Agmatine. Cognance. And caffeine is just the gold standard, I think. It's something that is made freely available in a lot of offices too, for good reasons, and schools, because if you feed a psychostimulant like caffeine to your employees, then they will likely be more productive and more focused. I've even seen stories now that certain tech companies are providing nicotine pouches for their employees already, which
that's
nicotine,
sort of controversial.
It is a bit controversial. Nicotine, on the one hand, yes, it is controversial. Nicotine is an addictive drug. On the other hand, caffeine is also an addictive drug.
Yeah.
And both of them are psychostimulants. Both of them are from natural origin. I think caffeine is more widely accepted than nicotine, but now, especially with all of the smokeless, like the little nicotine pouches, it's probably a bit healthier than smoking a cigarette. I'm convinced that it is healthier than smoking a cigarette. It's still not...
to jump in there, if anyone who is on the chat or watching the podcast has done a little bit of research on this, let us know. What is your research on nicotine patches in comparison to smoking a cigarette?
Yeah.
Oh, not
like the little snooze pouches.
Ah, okay, not a patch, but a pouch.
Pouch.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
A patch, honestly, would probably be even better. It'd be even smoother effects, but now it seems like some offices are stocking both coffee and nicotine because it enhances productivity. And for sure, nicotine does enhance focus. It's just not the right fit for everyone, but there is actually really good data on it. And we'll talk a little bit about how acetylcholine plays a role here. I happen to not respond amazingly to acetylcholine, so that's something we kept out of the stack for the most part. Erika responds a little bit better to it, but for having it work well for both of us, we're doing that. But caffeine in the form of an iced latte, because finally the weather has turned here. It's kind of summery, so I pulled us a shot with 20 grams of coffee and then a little bit of milk. So 20 grams of coffee should translate to 150, maybe 200 milligrams of caffeine. So on the higher end, caffeine is something that we consume every day. For me, once a day, so my tolerance is quite good actually for caffeine. So this should provide a nice boost, especially with these. So.
And for me, multiple times a day, so that's why I took a short little nap, which is also one of my behavioral focus tools.
That can really help too.
When necessary and when I have the time for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so cheers.
This is our caffeine source. And then let's grab some Sabroxy. And for those wondering, we are taking the 100 milligram variant. We also have a 500 milligram variant. You would think that the 500 milligram variant is going to be much more stimulating, maybe even better. In my opinion, that's not the case. Or in my scenario, that's not the case. I know for other people, they respond better to the 500 milligram dose. For us, I think actually the 100 milligram dose is more stimulating than the 500 milligram dose. Then you get some more GABAergic activity. So let's start with that one.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Chase it down with some more caffeine.
And a bit of protein.
And a bit of protein. Okay, and now some cognance. Interestingly enough, also a 100 milligram dose. That's just our standard dose. We don't offer a higher dose. I think 100 milligrams of cognance works really well. 200 milligrams actually also works really well. I kind of alternate in between. I don't want this to take center stage today, so we're just going to take a single 100 milligram dose. There you go.
Thank you.
And last but not least, some agmatine.
And what's the dose on the agmatine?
The agmatine is going to be 250 milligrams. For nootropic purposes, usually we're looking between 250 and 500 milligrams.
Okay.
We're just going to, again, take a single 250 milligram dose because I personally find that at 250 milligrams, it's more nootropic than at the higher dosage ranges. That's very different for a lot of people, but the general consensus is usually if you go more in the 250, 500 milligram range, it's really good for cognitive function and has more of a nootropic effect. And if you keep going up, then it becomes better for blood flow, having the pumps when you're at the gym, so then it becomes more of a fitness supplement. But in lower doses, it works really well as a cognition enhancer, and we'll get into why that is, and specifically why it's a really good one for focus, even though I don't see a whole lot of people talk about it for focus. And that's, I think, because usually when we think about focus, we think about psychostimulants. We think about things like Ritalin, Adderall, all of these things that are very, very, very strong stimulants. But interesting enough, even in the medical world, there is one other compound called guanfacine, which has a kind of a similar effect to agmatine, which is a non-stimulating focus enhancer. So we'll talk a bit about why that is the case, because focus and stimulation go hand in hand. Clearly there is some importance to stimulation, to wakefulness, to awareness, being alert. That definitely adds to focus, but it can also become too much. You become too stimulated. You have all of a sudden this cognitive capability to take in a lot of things from your environment, and that sometimes leads to this mode of exploration where you're going around in your environment, you're looking at a bunch of different things, you're doing a bunch of different things all at once, you think you can multitask like never before, but at the end of the day, you're actually not getting a whole lot done. So that's why we're going to take some agmatine to kind of put a damper in a certain way on the stimulation, but then tune the norepinephrine system in a way that will enhance focus. So.
Awesome.